Hello, hello. Welcome. I am doing Exodus 10 today, getting back to the Bible. It's not that I wasn't reading or studying the Bible, but I've been doing it for other things, and I haven't been able to make these videos. I did make a few rant ones. The thing about the rant ones is I don't have to think much about it. It's just a rant. I'm trying to get back to the Bible, though. That's what I started this for, and that's what gets me the least amount of views, which is really what I'm going for. Thanks for all the positive comments. I didn't really read that many. I just don't have that much time, but I appreciate it. For people who watch some of my rant videos, I made the dumb mistake of replying to, it wasn't really a negative one, it was just a criticism, and I was trying to be nice about it too, but I probably won't ever reply again, just because it seems like a waste of time. But I appreciate it. And if you got something out of it, even if it was a total disagreement, but it got your mind working and thinking about deeper things, then great. That's all I want to do. Here we go, Genesis 10, the plague of the locusts. I'm going to read from the New International Version. It's not the best version for translation from the Bible, but it's way easier to understand. Even the New King James Version is kind of tricky. And maybe I'll show you why, but here we go. Genesis 10, Plague of the Locusts and Darkness. Now the Lord said to Moses, Go to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the hearts of his servants, that I may show these signs of mine before him, and that you may tell in the hearing of your son and your son's son the mighty things I have done in Egypt, and my signs which I have done among them, that you may know that I am the Lord. Again, I've said this before, but I just love the cojones God gets to speak with. I always love trash talkers like in the NBA and stuff. And of course, God's the ultimate because he's God. He is the GOAT. No one's better than him. Verse 3, So Moses and Aaron came to Pharaoh and said to him, Thus says the Lord, God of the Hebrews, How long will you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go, and that they may serve me. So again, God is hardening Pharaoh's heart to show the glory, okay? To show the glory of God, the might of God. For those that might say that God's cruel in this, first off, you got to watch R.C. Sproul's Thug Life videos, because he's always just laughing at this, that God's God. Like, who are you to say anything to judge God? You are a creation from the dirt, and he is the Lord Almighty. So shut up. But I'm going to take a different approach and try and be more sympathetic about it. Is God being cruel? I think he's being just. Again, I've always said God is defined by three things from what I can tell. He is righteous, he is just, and he is loving. And you have to be all three of these to be any one of these three. You're not truly just if you're not loving, because you're not doing it out of the true feelings of your heart. You're just doing it because it's just. You have to be just out of a loving heart. You have to be righteous out of a loving and just heart. They all come together, and this is what defines God. So those who say this isn't very loving of him, well, it's not just of him to let Egypt get away. Egypt is wicked, okay, at this time. First off, they just genocided an entire generation of male babies for the Hebrews. They've enslaved the Hebrews. They do awful sacrifices, and they live a debauchery life, and they mock God. So Pharaoh's already condemned. God is hardening his heart, so that he won't just let them go. He wants not only to show his might to the world, and like he says, to tell your sons about this so that they will talk about it, so that the world will know of my might, but also this is a just punishment for Egypt. Egypt for a long time has been the world power, and they become corrupt, and debauchery runs rampant, corruption runs rampant, and what are they doing? They're enslaving and genociding people. Okay, guess what? Judgment Day is coming on you. Pharaoh's heart is hardened to show God's might, but Pharaoh wasn't, it doesn't matter if his heart was hardened or not. He doesn't want to let go of the fancy pants and lollipops that he has. That's why he continues to not, even after this plagues keep happening, he still won't let him go. Because if he lets him go, he's letting go of everything. The workforce, the free labor, all this stuff they get, the wealth they have is built on the backs of the Hebrews. And his power is based on him being a godlike ruler. So now he has to bow the knee to this other god. So he can't do it. He can't, because it takes humbleness out of him, and God won't let him do it anyway. And you're like, well, then it just makes things worse because the plagues keep coming. It's not really Pharaoh's fault. It's God's for hardening his heart. Whatever, man. Pharaoh and the Egyptians are not good people, all right? Justice is coming for them either way. Now the world gets to see the might of God. Who are you to judge God? Anyway, verse 4. Or else, if you refuse to let my people go, behold, tomorrow I will bring locusts into your territory, and they shall cover the face of the earth, so that no one will be able to see the earth, and they shall eat the residue of what is left, which remains to you from the hail, and they shall eat every tree which grows up for you out of the field. They shall fill your houses, the houses of all your servants, and the houses of all the Egyptians, which neither your fathers nor your fathers' fathers have seen since the day that they were on the earth to this day. And he turned and went out from Pharaoh. Okay. So Pharaoh's heart's hardened. He's like, no, your people can't go, blah, blah, blah. I'm Pharaoh. So Moses is like, whatever. Tomorrow locusts are coming, and they're going to eat what's left from the hailstorm. Now, I was doing a little bit of research for this ahead of time, and I've heard about this before, but there's tons of scientific things that explain, and I've talked about this already, the plagues that came upon the Egyptians. You know, the blood, there's the red algae and all this stuff. That for the hail and a lot of other things, there was this volcano eruption on this island, and a lot of people think that's what was going on. That would have brought the darkness, which we'll get into as well, and the winds and everything. But my whole point is that doesn't matter. Even if that stuff does explain it, the timing of it, just because you explain how something happens doesn't remove that God was the why. You know, of course, God might operate within the realms of physics. He wrote the laws of physics, so why wouldn't he use them? I mean, it's just, people use that as an argument that, see, it was nothing special. It's nothing special. It happened the day after Moses told Pharaoh about this stuff. You know, either he's a super good weatherman or I don't know. Okay. And again, he says, this is not like anything your father's fathers, your father's father's fathers, any of them have ever seen. These locusts are going to be covering the entire face of the earth, all of Egypt. Notice how he says just the Egyptians too. Again, doesn't mention it about the Israelites. We'll get into that with the darkness as well. But so with cicadas, locusts, there are, you know, they come out in mass every 13 to 17 years. So they are this swarm that happens. But this is one that has never been seen before and will never be seen again. So it's the biggest swarm you've ever seen, which makes it even, because again, if it was just a swarm of locusts, they could brush it off as, you know, this happened, you know, when I was a boy. My father told me about this. But for one, the magnitude that it comes at, it has never been seen before. Then Pharaoh's servants said to Pharaoh, how long shall this man be a snare to us? Let them go, that they may serve the Lord their God. Do you not yet know that Egypt is destroyed? Here we go. So they're like, dude, just let them go. What's wrong with you? Can't you see what's going on here? We're destroyed, man. We would have been better off if you just let them go earlier. Judgment's coming, though. God hardened his heart. And he's blinded. He's blinded by, as Owen Benjamin would say, the fancy pants and the lollipops. Like, he is Pharaoh. He can't give, from the beginning, he couldn't give it up because that's giving up his power. Everything he has, he can't give it up. If he gives up a little bit, and we'll see that, even if he gives up a little bit, the rest he's afraid it will come falling out. It's like the people who hoard their money, who hoard onto things. But what people don't understand is it's not yours, it's God's. You know, if you don't do it for God, just like in Ecclesiastes, everything done not for God or without God is meaningless. So he doesn't realize this money, this power isn't real. God let him have it. God can take it away. He thinks it's his. This is Pharaoh. So he can't see that he's destroyed. He can't. Not only is his heart hardened, but he's blinded by his greed He's blinded by his lust. He's blinded by his own personal wants and desires. It's crazy. You'll see this with, as far as like people losing everything and not realizing it and wanting to hang on to it. You see with celebrities a lot, these, what I call, a lot of them are sellouts who then end up becoming broke, and they can't figure out why, and it's so unfair, and they don't realize, hey, it wasn't your money to begin with, and you didn't do it for God. That's not a knock on all celebrities, obviously. But understand, he's blinded not only because God has hardened his heart, but how has he done that? He is Pharaoh. Just like God says, I am the Lord. That is the mindset Pharaoh has. I am Pharaoh. I have the power. And if I let any of this power go, it's a weakness now that everyone can see. I'm no longer this God-like ruler. So everything that all my power is built on the fact that I'm this God-like ruler. If they see this other God or this man, because God said in the beginning that he was going to make Moses appear as his adversary, like as his equal. Like Moses was the one going against Pharaoh. Pharaoh doesn't technically really realize that it's God and Moses is his servant, because Pharaoh sees himself as a god. So the only way, the man he's facing has to be this godlike figure, and Aaron is seen as his prophet, because he doesn't realize he's so below God. He doesn't get to deal with God. He gets to deal with God's servant, Moses. But because he's so blind, he doesn't even realize that he's dealing with God's servant. He thinks he's dealing like with this powerful guy, and he's like, yeah, you're God, like just like my God Ra, but I'm the real God. Ra isn't the real God, I'm the real God. That's how Pharaoh sees it. Like, he knows his gods aren't real. He knows his gods are phony gods. He's the God. So he looks at Moses this way. He doesn't realize that God has the power. None of the power Pharaoh has is real. So he can't see it. Verse 8, and I'm sorry, I am reading currently from the New King James Version. This is where I'm switching over to the New International Version, and I'll show you why in a second, just to make something more clear. Back, Bailey. I know, I'll walk you later. Then Moses and Aaron were brought back to Pharaoh. Go worship the Lord your God, he said, but tell me who will be going. Moses answered, we will go with our young and our old, with our sons and our daughters, and with our flocks and herds, because we are to celebrate a festival to the Lord. Ooh, getting dangerous. All right, here we go. Pharaoh said, the Lord be with you if I let you go, along with your women and children. Clearly you are bent on evil. No, have only the men go and worship the Lord, since that is what you have been asking for. Then Moses and Aaron were driven out of Pharaoh's presence. Now, real quick, before I talk about it, this is what the King James and New King James Version says right in that passage. And this is why I thought it was a little confusing. Then he said to them, Pharaoh said to Moses, the Lord had better be with you when I let you and your little ones go. Beware, for evil is ahead of you. Not so. Go now, you who are men, and serve the Lord. For that is what you desire. And they were driven from Pharaoh's presence. See, in that reading, I didn't get that Pharaoh's mad. Like, I didn't understand the sarcasm verse of his statement of, listen, the Lord had better be with you when you go, when I let your little ones go with you. Beware. I didn't realize he's saying, no, you can't go with everyone. You're bent on evil. Only the men can go. It's more clear, in my opinion, the New International Version, that he's being somewhat sarcastic a little bit, and that he's angry. So one more time, verse 10, in the New International Version. The Lord be with you if I let you go, along with your women and children. Clearly you are bent on evil. No, have only the men go and worship the Lord, since that's what you have been asking for. Then Moses and Aaron were driven out of Pharaoh's presence. So when I read that and then I go back, it's clear, oh, okay, now I see what's going on. But for the King James Version, I didn't totally get that the first time. So he's like, no way, man. I'm not sending you out with all your kids and everything. You think you get to go with everybody? Screw that. Just the men. And then get back here. See, he can't, again, he can't, even when he realizes, even when his servants and all of his advisors are like, dude, let them go. We're destroyed. We had a hailstorm where all of our water was blood. Our crops are just terrible this year. All the bugs, the disease, our livestock's all gone. We're broke, man, and it just keeps getting worse. Just let them go. Let them go. We can't have the locusts destroy the rest of our crop. So it's like, fine, whatever, screw it, I'll let them go. What? All of them? Yeah, right. What kind of evil are you trying to pull over my eyes here on this one? Trying to sneak everyone out? See, he still is told, because this is what God told Moses to say, he's still under the impression that he's just letting them go for 3 days to do worship. And he can't let him do that. He can't even let him do 3 days to go do worship. And God knew he wouldn't. So that's why he's doing it. But he's like, I have to hold on. I have to hold on to their women and their children and their livestock to make sure they come back. Because again, the Hebrews are the workforce. They're the free labor workforce that's built the wealth of Egypt over the years. So I gotta have a hook to keep them here. I can't let them all go because my power. I can't let go. It's kind of like the people who won't be charitable because because they have enough money to be charitable, but they won't because they think they need to hold on to all of it, not seeing that the blessings they'll get back will be tenfold. And that's what's going on with with Pharaoh. Verse 12. And the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand over Egypt so that locusts swarm over the land and devour everything growing in the fields, everything left by the hail. So Moses stretched out his staff over Egypt, and the Lord made an east wind blow across the land all that day and all that night. By morning the wind had brought the locusts. They invaded all Egypt and settled down in every area of the country in great numbers. Never before had there been such a plague of locusts, nor will there ever be again. They covered all, I think the only other time that's said is after Noah too, nor will there ever be again. Pretty sure. Anyway, they covered all the ground until it was black. They devoured all that was left after the hail, everything growing in the fields, and the fruit of the trees. Nothing green remained on trees or plants in all the land of Egypt. So, I can't swear on this because I don't think that's taking God's name in vain, but I don't want to be rude either. But it's hard for me not to just laugh, and because it's basically like, screw you, only the naughtier version. Egypt, this is what you get. Like, you deserve this, and you shouldn't take joy. That's why justice is the Lord's. That's the difference between justice and revenge. If you're taking joy out of getting justice for your own pleasure, because they deserve it, yeah, that's a dark road. But if you do it from the point of justice, completely from the point of justice, kind of like Ned Stark in Game of Thrones. The man who passed sentence should swing the sword. He doesn't want to swing the sword, but he knows it's just, but he gets no pleasure out of it. That's kind of the mentality of it. And God can be that way. This is just. I'm not doing this because of any other reason, not out of my own pleasure that I get from being, that joke is so old that God gets pleasure out of seeing us suffer because, the world's so awful. But he doesn't get pleasure from it. He's doing this for a purpose. He didn't want Egypt to stray from serving the Lord. They're descendants of Noah. They knew the message originally. They strayed away. He's not happy with that. He gave them so much time to come back. I mean, he gave them Joseph. You don't think Joseph was kind of like, hey, this is a great God. Look what he's done for me and my family, and look how smart and good ruler I am. But no. They refuse. They become more and more corrupt, and more corrupt, and more debauchery filled. I don't know what the word for that is. Until they get to the point where they can just genocide an entire generation of boys without even batting an eye. Don't even think twice about it. And again, yes, they had the common people of Egypt did have to suffer, but does God wipe them out? No. He destroys the power of Egypt, the power of the national state of Egypt, the entity, not the people themselves. They survived. Yes, they go through hardship because they were pretty complacent with the sin that was going on. So they're not innocent themselves. But does he wipe out the people of Egypt? No. And we will get to the firstborn, which again is just, because that's exactly, I mean, they did entire generation boys. It didn't matter if it was the firstborn or not. I mean, it's justice coming back in order to show that God is the one with the power. Not these fake godlike rulers on this world. Not these false gods. He's the God, and you must follow him. And he will come back and pay you back with justice in full. That's who he is. That's why Christ had to die for our sins, because the price of sin is death. That's the only thing. If he's just, he has to be just. A judge can't be kinder to his son in the courtroom because he's his son. Even though he broke the law, he has to be just equally among everyone. That's how justice works. You're not just if you're treating this group differently than this group. So Christ, we're all sinners. We all have to be punished. But Christ lived an innocent life and died for our sins. Justice. The pardon has been paid. All we have to do is accept him now. And this is it's from day one in the Bible. Justice, righteousness, loving. That is what defines God. All right. Tangent, sorry. Pharaoh quickly summoned Moses and Aaron, this is verse 16, and said, I have sinned against the Lord your God and against you. Now forgive me my sin once more and pray to the Lord your God to take this deadly plague away from me. Moses then left Pharaoh and prayed to the Lord, and the Lord changed the wind to a very strong west wind, which caught up the locusts and carried them into the Red Sea. Not a locust was left anywhere in Egypt, but the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let the Israelites go. Because he doesn't care. He can't let them go. That's his power. If I let them go, I don't have any power. I need my power. He doesn't realize power comes from God. He doesn't get it, what the power source is. He doesn't understand it at all. He thinks power is tricking people into thinking that he is the only one with the power. He's like Littlefinger from Game of Thrones. I'm sorry, I'm such a Game of Thrones nerd. I didn't even finish it. You know, the last season, I couldn't even get through the season. But, man, those first few seasons were great. All right. So, he begs for mercy, gets mercy, still doesn't let him go. And again, this is all because God has to show his might. He's got to be righteous, he's got to be just, and he's got to show his might. That's the way it is. Because if he wasn't just, he wouldn't be God. If he wasn't righteous, he wouldn't be God. If he wasn't loving, he wouldn't be God. But he's all three of those. And people just want to see God as purely loving. But they don't realize what love entails. You know, spare the rod, spoil the child. If a loving parent doesn't punish their child when they're wrong, they're not a loving parent. You're not really teaching the child anything. Love is just. So many people don't realize that, and it's a detriment. It really is. All right, the plague of darkness, verse 21. Then the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand toward the sky so that darkness spreads over Egypt, darkness that can be felt. So Moses stretched out his hand toward the sky, and total darkness covered all Egypt for 3 days. No one could see anyone else or move about for 3 days, yet all the Israelites had light in the places where they lived. So, once again, here, I'm going to switch over one more time real quick here. Where was it? Oh yeah. No one could see anywhere or move about for 3 days. Yet all the Israelites had light in the places where they lived. Again, Israel isn't affected. That's pretty crazy for a miracle. Because again, archaeologists will show that this volcano might have erupted at about the same time. This would have caused for a lot of these plagues, including this darkness one. But how is it just shows up right at the perfect time? That's a miracle, even if it was used by science, or God uses the laws of science to do it. And then it doesn't affect Israel, though, which is in Goshen, which is right next to Egypt. And this is a darkness that can be felt, it said. It's so dark and heavy, which would come from a volcano. I mean, I guess the ash would have to be high in the sky, though, because if it's down low, they would just say it was ash, and it would have caused lungs, But maybe that's what they meant when they said felt. Who knows for sure? But they would have known that it was ash. They weren't dumb. They just hadn't experienced or read as much as us. But they would have been able to explain that it was ash. So maybe it was this volcano thing. If it was that, I feel like the ash was, for some reason, higher up. It wasn't totally affecting their lungs. But I don't know how that works. Maybe it's those winds from earlier that God sent. Once again, using the laws of physics. I'm sorry, this keeps shaking. I need a new desk. But anyway, moving on. Verse 24, Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and said, Go worship the Lord. Even your women and children may go with you. Only leave your flocks and herds behind. Like, what a D-bag. I don't know if that's a curse word, but I won't say it. Like, what a total shenanigans player this guy is. I can't not curse. I gotta come up with better words. All right, what a total jerk. I mean, what a loser. What an idiot. Listen to that again. And remember, think about this like you're watching a show. I don't know. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and said, Go worship the Lord. Even your women and your children may go with you. Only leave your flocks and herds behind. You have no room to negotiate like this. First off, have you not seen what I've been doing? Have you not seen what's been going on? You just begged me to take this stuff away. Now I gave you this darkness. You still think you can make demands? Like he's still trying to bargain. I can't let go of all of it. I gotta keep something behind. I'll keep their herds behind. Yeah, that's something. Yeah, I'll let their people go, but I won't let their herds go. Because all their herds are dead. Egypt's herds are all dead. Because they're evil. Who'd have thunk it? So he still doesn't get it. What a douche. I mean, how is he not aware of this? I'm still going to keep some of it behind for myself. I can't let my power go. Your power's gone, man. He doesn't see it yet. He doesn't see it yet. That it wasn't even real power to begin with. He still can't totally let go. It reminds me of the parable Christ tells about it wasn't a parable, was it a real thing? Yeah, it was a parable. A rich man wanted to follow Christ, and yes, how can I follow you, or how can I serve you? And Christ tells him, go sell everything you have. Come follow me. Everything? Because he has so much to lose, That's why the poor and the distraught, it was easier for them to follow Christ. The people who were like lowly sinners who he hung out with were aware that they were lowly sinners. Because they'd been told their whole lives they're lowly sinners. It was the elite that had a hard time with being told that they weren't so elite, that they were just as low. They were the ones who couldn't handle it. The rich man was like, what? I gotta give up. I have a lot. Like that woman gave up everything, but she didn't have a lot. I have a lot. You understand? What if I just hold on to? What if I give up like half of my stuff? That's a lot. I mean, that could help a lot of people. But the rich, that's what it takes. I'm not saying you have to give up everything, but in everything you do, it should be for the Lord. Now, none of us will live up to that standard. That's why you have to accept Christ. But that's what God asks of us. If you want to serve me, then nothing. It's not that you can't be wealthy. There's tons of stories told by Christ and parables about taking care of yourself and growing wealth if you do it for the Lord. But the second the Lord asks you to give it all away, you should give it away because it's not yours. If you don't want to give it away, then you look at your wealth and your power as your own and not God's. So that's how Pharaoh looks at it. The person who looks at their wealth and everything that they've gained as a blessing from God, that's a blessing. God blessed you with that, and you are aware of it. And that person, it may not be easy, but if God told them, if Christ told them to give up everything, they'd give it up because they did it all for God in the first place. It's the person who, I got to have some for myself. I got to have some for me. This is what's going on with Pharaoh. He of course, he doesn't even really believe in the God of Moses. This is what it says, what is it, Exodus 2 or 3 or whatever, how God told Moses that Pharaoh would look at Moses as a god or as his equal. And Pharaoh looks at himself as a god-like ruler. He's not aware that he should be thanking the God of Moses for his power. He has no idea what that even means. It's his power. It's mine. So God's like, nope, I'm going to take it away. Dummy. All right. Verse 25, but Moses said, you must allow us to have sacrifices, burnt offerings, to present to the Lord our God. Our livestock too must go with us. Not a hoof is to be left behind. We have to use some of them in worshiping for the Lord our God. Until we get there, we will not know what we are to use to worship the Lord. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he was not willing to let them go. Pharaoh said to Moses, get out of my sight. Make sure you do not appear before me again. That day you see my face, you will die. Like, he's trying to sound like God, But you're not God, so it's kind of like funny, really, to me. All right, man. Whatever. I don't know if you've noticed what I've been doing to your country, but bye. And he's not even a good negotiator. Why wasn't he like, hey, yes, you can let him go, and we've been awful to you, but you got to leave some of your livestock behind because ours are all wiped out. I know it was our own fault, but you can't let us just starve, man. Just leave us like half your livestock. No, because that would take humility. I bet if he did that, all right, cool, yeah, you can have half our livestock. That's great, man. See ya. And wow, what a great thing that would have been. Pharaoh would have humbled himself. The Hebrews would have fed them and then been free. But no, he's a terrible negotiator because it's not a negotiation. He still looks like he gets to make demands. I still get to make demands because they're still mine. Your people are still mine. It's me who's letting them go. He doesn't see that it's God that's setting them free and destroying Egypt in the process. He keeps giving him the option to let them go and get out of it. Even in the next one, we get to the plague of the firstborn. Remember, the lamb's blood. But anyway, God's hardening his heart to show his power. But Pharaoh's also an idiot. He's a power-hungry idiot. Just look at it with a secularist atheist could look at this and he would have negotiated a better deal than Pharaoh. Because Pharaoh isn't a secularist atheist. Pharaoh is God. I'm God. And this is like the ultimate thing the Bible is constantly telling us. This is the downfall of humanity. And there are people who will always be like this. Egocentric, narcissistic, call them whatever you want or will, that see themselves as their own God. Was it Aleister Crowley? Do what thou will. Do what your own will says to do. You are your own. How many gurus and religions do you hear, like enlightenment and become your own God? It's a new age movement. You are your own God. You're your own ruler. People have always thought this. They've always done this. This is nothing new. Pharaoh thought he was a god. He didn't realize who God was. People always think they can be their own God or that they are a godlike, because it's what I look at it is a teenager who in the first time in their life, they, without anyone explaining something to them, they kind of connect dots and figure something else for the first time. Or the first time that like a teenager has an epiphany, a revelation all on their own. They think that they are like this ultimate super being, because they don't realize that everyone's had that. They don't realize that all adults have that, and the older you get, the more you work on your mind, you have them more often. And, the more you come to God, the more often you have them. They don't know this because they're teenagers, and it's a brand new thing to them. So they're like, "Oh my God, I'm so special." Wow, Not all teenagers, but a lot of teenagers do this, even if it's just for a short time. They think that they are super special the first time they have an epiphany. They don't realize that everyone has this. It's not till you're older and you've experienced more things in life, you realize, oh, this isn't special as far as, me being the only one that this happens to. And that's what happens with these people who see themselves as their own God. Like, they don't realize that other people think, that other people have their own minds. No one has a mind like mine. I'm so much better than everyone. I'm this power hungry. People look at me and I have the power. This is how Pharaoh's thinking. I have the power. It's my power because I'm so much better than everyone else. I'm so much better than everyone else. It's my power. Again, think like Cersei or Littlefinger from Game of Thrones, if you need an example. People can't see what the real power is when they have this false power. Because to give up this false power, they think that they're giving up everything that they have. When in reality, if you give up this false power for the power of God, you become so much stronger. And even when the information's right in front of them, like this, Genesis 10, Moses, hello, it's right here. I'm showing you these plagues. You got to give it up, man. They still can't see it. It's like these people who, Gavin McGinnis talks about this all the time, that there's a world's going to end on this date cult. And then that date comes, and the next day they're just as popular, if not more popular. There's all these studies that if you present evidence that contrasts what someone believes, a lot of times they'll believe it even stronger. And hello, Pharaoh's being shown this stuff that's obviously, hey, let your people go. His servants are telling him to let him go. He can't do it. He just can't. That was a long one. Sorry I kept going and going. I haven't done the Bible in a while. And it gets me fired up. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope it was thought-provoking in some way. Sorry that my camera shakes so much and the quality's low. But this is just something I do in my spare time for fun. All I can say is I hope that it encourages you to look in your Bible. And if anyone out there thinks that they can do this better than me, you probably can. And I hope you do. And I will probably listen to you. That's all I want to do, is get people thinking about deeper thoughts and about God. Everyone have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or good night. God bless.